Hey everyone, I am back again with another video, just showing off some cool bikes. Normally when I do these, I actually do a video like shooting the bike and I talk about it. Today's focus though, as you can see in our picture here, I'm dressed up kind of funny. We're doing a slideshow. The reason why we're doing a slideshow instead of video is because there were so many cool bikes. The Tweed ride, the Kansas City Tweed ride, was this weekend. So I went, I brought the old Murray Monterey, and I dressed up in some old clothes. So kind of hard to see in the picture there, but I've got Argyle socks pulled up over my pants. I've got a little bow tie on that's back there. You can, I guess the beard kind of covers that up. And yeah, so anyway, yeah, I brought the old Murray, and that was great. Fit right in with. There were a lot of really sweet bikes. So, yeah, the Murray is great. It was an awesome ride with the Murray. It was only about like 6 or 7 miles, I believe. You know, it was a very leisurely ride through one of the most historic neighborhoods in Kansas City. Vintage clothing, vintage bikes, and all fit in there just perfectly. It was great taking the Murray. Okay, so first up, the first bike I want to show you guys, we've got a vintage Huffy. As you can see, it's got caliper brakes, and it looks like, it looks like this is a single speed. If you look at the next picture here, you can really see that style of handlebar. That's pretty cool handlebars, that mustache kind of style. I like that. Next up, we have this Hiawatha bicycle. It's women's step through. I talked to the owner of this bike, and she was talking about how it came from a department store in like she was thinking it could have been the late 1950s, when this bike was purchased, when it was made. But she was thinking more realistically it was probably sometime in the early to mid 1960s. There are a couple of similarities that I see with this bike and the Murray Monterey of mine that I've been restoring. For one thing, the fork. If you look at the top of the fork, it has that same kind of style with the chrome on top is the same shape. There's also that little space between the very top, and there's a little piece in there that's kind of funny looking. I've never seen that before, but the Murray has that, and this bike has that too. But yeah, so this bike, it's got the caliper brakes, as you can see by the cabling and by that little chrome piece that's sticking out of the back of the chain, the rear sprocket, that this has an internal gear hub. Now our next picture here is close-up of the shifter. You can see H, N, and L instead of 1, 2, and 3. I've never seen H, N, and L before, but high, normal, and low are what those stand for. So, yeah, pretty interesting. So next, this is our most unique bike that was there at the event. So this was a really cool bike to see, and most people see this and they're like, whoa, what is that? Because there's a lot of things going on with this bike. So first off, this is a Pettersen bike. These were made in the, I believe from the 1890s up until like the 1930s is when these were commonly produced. They never really caught on, so there's not really that many of them around, so they're pretty rare. The seat is pretty funny looking. It's kind of like a hammock. The idea is that as you sit on it, it's like its own suspension, so if you're on a bumpy road, you don't really feel it. And it's also just, I took several pictures of this bike. The frame is just pretty weird. All those bars making up the frame and everything. As you can see, this bike has been changed a little bit. Like it actually has, you can see on the front it has V brakes installed there, and on the back it's got cantilever brakes, the center pull brakes. And it appears, it's hard to see in the pictures, but it looks like this bike has a rear derailleur installed. and as you can see on the handlebar there actually is a shifting lever there. Yeah, so that's the Pettersen. Pretty cool bike. Pretty cool. Next up, we have a penny farthing. This is not an original penny farthing. This is a reproduction, but it's pretty close to what an actual one would have been like at the time. So the penny farthing, it's I believe it gets its name from two British coins. So the big wheel represents the penny, and then there was also a coin that was called farthing, and it was much smaller, and that's what the little wheel represents. So no brakes, nothing. You just got the two wheels, you got the pedals. That's it. Yeah. So next we have another penny farthing. This one is a much more modern one. It's also a lot smaller. Now it's really hard to judge the size of this one. As you see it here, I've got two photos of this one. But it's really hard to tell just how big this actually is just by seeing it. You can kind of see in the corner, there's another wheel there. And when you go to the next picture, you can see a better shot of that wheel. That's a 26 on another bike that's sitting there next to it. So that kind of gives perspective to how big this bike actually is. The top of the big wheel on this one is probably about seat height for most bikes. So yeah, this thing's pretty tall. Again, I don't know the tire size. I didn't check that, but as you can see, this one actually has brakes installed, that caliper brakes. And as you can see in the second image, there's a piece of a step that comes out of the frame there, so you can climb onto the bike. And the other one, the bigger penny farthing, had that as well. I believe they all have that because that's how you get on. Next, we have a very nice looking Schwinn Hollywood. I could not tell you how old I think this bike is. If I had a guess, I would say probably sometime in the late 1950s, early 1960s. Single speed, coaster brakes. Yeah. I mean, check out those pedals. Those are pretty retro looking, and that chain ring. And I love that chain guard. There's something about the old vintage Schwinns that's, I don't know, there's something about them I just really like. But yeah, that's great, and it's got a cute little basket on the front there too, and I love the chrome fenders. Yeah, that's great. That's a nice bike. Next we have a old Ross, which I'm not too familiar with Ross. This has got the caliper brakes. This one looks like it. Yeah, this has got a rear derailleur as well as a front derailleur. You can see it's got a 2-speed chainring on the front. Can't really see the back one, but I would assume that it's probably a 3 that's back there. Yeah, so that's the Ross. Next we've got we have a Hercules. Now our Hercules here, look at those chrome fenders. I really like those. And that paint job is almost flawless. That seat looks like it's the original seat as well. I don't even know where you could buy a seat like that anymore. I bet there's people out there who restore them. But you know, leather workers or whatever. But yeah, that's just a good looking bike. So as you can see, the cable going to the rear sprocket there. This is a 3-speed internal gear hub. Yeah, the caliper brakes. Yeah, just a pretty good looking bike. So our next photo here, that same bike, the Hercules. You can see the shifting mechanism for the internal gear hub is quite different. I guess I could have taken a better picture, but yeah, it's pretty strange. I've never seen one like that. It's kind of like a switch that you slide back and forth, which I've never seen that. And then that light on the front, pretty sure that's not a hub-powered light because I don't see any cables going down there. I believe this is one of those lights where you pop the top off, or you take the front off of it, and probably takes like 1 or 2 D-size batteries. But yeah, so that's another pretty awesome looking bike. Next up, I took a lot of pictures of this thing, but yeah, so this guy The owner did not build it himself. Somebody built it for him. Um, so that center piece there, whatever you want to call that, there's many uses for it. You can fold the sides up and have it for storage for picnics. Throw a cooler on there. That's great. I guess the owner, when his kids were really young, he would have them ride around in there. You can also fold the sides down flat and use that as a bench. So it's got two kickstands on both back sides of it, close to the center. And then you can see that third picture that's down. You can see the kickstands there. Also I guess it's not really suspension, but how you steer it. There's basically a rod that goes down from the handlebars down to that bar that goes across the whole bottom, and that bar connects back to the front wheel to steer it. So this bike probably weighs a ton. I would not like to have to lift it up, but pretty cool. Pretty cool having something like that. I bet it'd be a lot of fun to have for picnics and camping and things like that. So next up we have a green Schwinn. I'm not really sure what type of Schwinn this is, but you can see it's got the caliper brakes. It has a shifting lever there. You can see that in the center of the near the stem. You can see that there. So it's and that hub does not look like it's big enough to be an internal gear hub on the back. So this bike looks like it's got probably a 3-speed derailleur that's back there. And man, those chrome fenders, I might have to get some of those for that Murray. I might. Those just look so good. Next up, we've got a Columbia. So this is a women's step-through. I haven't really been pointing out the step-throughs and the non-step-throughs, but whatever. So this bike looks like it's probably from the late 60s, maybe the early to mid-1970s. That is a pretty retro-looking seat on there. Yeah, you just don't see seats like that too much. So let's see. This bike has, you can see a shifting mechanism over there on the right side of the handlebar. So this has probably got a 3-speed. The hub looks like it's an internal gear hub. It looks like it's a good size down there, although you can't really see it that well. I didn't have much time to take these pictures. There were so many bikes, and I didn't get pictures of every single one. But yeah, you can see it's got caliper brakes on it. Take a look at the horn on the front. That horn has 3 different barrels, I guess. So when the owner was honking the horn, it had a pretty unique sound. So that was pretty cool, pretty fun. Giving good atmosphere to the ride. Next up, this is the last bike that I took photos of. So this is an old Schwinn. Look at those tires. The owner said those are the original tires, that the white walls look bad, but the tires themselves are still in good enough shape to ride, so he wasn't really going to change them, I guess, until he absolutely needs to. I guess that kind of makes sense. If you can keep your bike as original as possible for as long as possible, then why not? But if it were me, I would change those tires, just get some newer white walls on there, get it looking really good. But yeah, pretty cool Schwinn. Check out that style of that around the cassette back there, because this has a rear derailleur on it. So yeah, that chrome piece. I love the styles that they had for those. You don't really see a whole lot of style variations with cassettes and chain rings and all that stuff anymore today, unless you buy a really high-end bike from a bike shop. Of course, back then, Schwinns were considered high-end. The Schwinns of today are just crap bikes. They sell them at Kmart, Walmart, Target, all those department stores, and they're just no good anymore. But there's those old retro vintage Schwinns. There's just something about them that are just so cool. And again, those chrome fenders, those are just so beautiful. And then this was the last picture I took of that Schwinn. I thought that was pretty cool that it's got a speedometer with an odometer on there as well. That's great. I think that's just so cool seeing that kind of stuff. So those are all the pictures I took. Yeah, so the Tweed ride was a pretty awesome event. I had a lot of fun during it. I'm looking forward to going back again next year and yeah, and seeing more awesome bikes. So yeah, hope you guys have enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.